Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books. Actually, today I don't really want to talk about books specifically. Today I thought would be a good time to do an update to my reading anxiety video. I was actually quite surprised that that video gets views even now, a year and a half, 2 years after I first made that video. And I think it speaks to one, that a lot of readers tend to be high anxiety people. And that kind of jives with statistics about how people with like high intellect tend to deal with mental health issues, and how little we talk about them as well, and how we need to have these discussions even more amongst ourselves in booktube. I know there are people who have these discussions, and I think it doesn't hurt to continue having them and to openly talk about mental health. So the first thing I want to talk about is the need for access to therapy and therapists, to medicine. That is one of the main things that have helped me. I do have a diagnosed anxiety disorder, and I have gone to a therapist and have looked at various different tools to help me with my anxiety, right? So it's something that exists and that is a struggle for me outside of reading, but so today I want to talk about how anxiety kind of can overlap with some of my reading habits and kind of create a kind of anxiety about reading that I know now from the responses I've had to that reading anxiety video that a lot of people share. So one of the things that I have been reflecting a lot about when it comes to anxiety and reading anxiety is that for me, reading is a hobby. And I think that is true for most people, in that we are not necessarily making money off of it. It's not a career for most of us. Even people who have monetized channels and are making enough money that they can buy books from their channel, it's still not necessarily a career. They're not making a ton of money off of it, and so it's a hobby. And so whenever I start feeling anxiety about my reading, that is one of the things that I go back to. I'm not getting paid for this. It is not my job. The world will not end because I don't upload a video today, and that is all okay, right? That is one of the things that it's important to remind ourselves, right? This is a hobby, and whatever I'm doing is okay as long as I'm happy with it. Now, some of the nature of booktube and all that is that we publicly share our reading habits, our reading taste, what we're reading, all of that, and that can create pressure to want to read more, to read the same things that other people are reading, and that is also okay to have those feelings, to feel anxious about not reading enough, about not liking the same things everybody seems to be liking. I think it's normal to feel that way when you are comparing yourself to others. And the main thing for me when I feel those thoughts coming into my head is to kind of realize that those are intrusive thoughts, that they are actually interfering with the joy that I find in reading, and that it's a relaxation thing for me. So why would I continue doing something that's just going to add to my anxiety? I'm not going to. I'm cutting things out of my life that give me anxiety and are not necessary, and reading is a hobby for me. It's a relaxation. I tend to read at night before bed, and I find that a relaxing thing to do, even when I'm reading about murder. I do tend to stay away from reading nonfiction before bed, just because reading nonfiction tends to stimulate a lot of thoughts and a lot of things going on in my brain, and that's not conducive to me falling asleep. Murder's okay though. So that is one of the things that I think for anybody struggling with anxiety around reading is to think about when you're reading, and whether that time of day that you're doing your reading is actually something that's relaxing and is serving the purpose that you want out of your reading. So I'll give you an example. A few months ago, I was really struggling with like reading, feeling a little bit like a chore, and feeling really tired during the day and feeling guilty that I wasn't doing certain things during the day. And what I realized was happening is that I was putting a lot of reading in the evening, and then I would get sucked into books and stay up really late reading, and then that would mean I would not be able to sleep in the morning because I've got work and I've got dogs and I've got things to do. And so I was still waking up at the same time, so it meant I was getting less sleep, and that was just impacting my mood, my anxiety, just it was impacting a lot of things. So I started trying to switch things around and read in the morning rather than reading in the evening. That ended up not quite working for me because I've just built this habit over so many years of reading in the evenings that it's really hard for me to break that habit. But I was at least able to shorten the amount of time that I was spending reading in the evenings, and so that I could still get enough sleep at night. So that has been a good thing. But that's one of the things to consider if changing a habit, right? Changing that habit of one you're reading might help kind of ease some of that reading anxiety. The other thing is that, for some of us, like having a set TBR just doesn't work because we're mood readers. I am a big mood reader, and yet there are some things that, like, I tell myself I'm going to read this book or these books this month, but it's a small amount of them, right? Like for March, I told myself I would read one Agatha Christie book and that I would try to read mystery. And I was like, okay, at least one mystery this month. I picked out a whole bunch of mysteries, and then I told myself I would allow myself to pick and choose from there, and I was not obligated to read from that list. And that really helps me with my reading anxiety, and not have reading add to my anxiety, because then I don't feel like, oh no, I told everybody I was going to read these books, and if I don't read these books, there's something wrong. No. Give yourself flexibility. Again, because this is a hobby, because it's something that is done for fun, then it should remain for fun. And you don't need to be harsh on yourself for that. Another thing that gives people a lot of anxiety, a lot of reading anxiety, is how much you're reading, how many books. Some people read a lot of books over the course of a month, over the course of a year, and it works for them. They are fast readers, or they might sometimes just their lifestyle allows them to spend a lot of time reading, and that's one of the main things that when you look at the numbers, the number of books some people are reading. Pay attention to what their job is and what their lifestyle is, because that impacts how many books they're reading. If somebody is, unemployed at the moment, they have time to read more books during a certain amount of period. If somebody is a fast reader, somebody is basically like speed reading through books, that it will impact their numbers. If somebody's reading a lot of shorter books, that impacts that number. And so those are all things to consider. And like I sometimes think about all of the reading I could be doing if I didn't have a job. Like, yeah, I have a job that I actually like. I have a job that is really great, and I'm not going to stop doing my job to read more. And actually also realizing that the number of books you're reading is not important, like at all. It's all about whether you're happy with the reading that you're doing. So you could be reading one book a month, and if that brings you joy, that is good. You could be reading half a book a month, and if that's bringing you joy, then that is fantastic and that works. It doesn't matter how much you're reading as long as it is still giving you joy. And comparing ourselves to others is really easy, but it's also can be very toxic when we try to set unrealistic goals based on, for our lifestyle, for our everyday lives, for our routines. Now, having said that, I don't think it's bad to set a goal to read more, for example, because there are ways to figure out how to read a little bit more without putting on a ton of pressure, right? So I know when I first started my channel, I was actively trying to read more because I wasn't reading for fun at all. And so my goal was just to read more for fun. And so I found ways to make that a little bit easier. That's a whole other video though, how I try to fit reading into my life. And then finally, I just want to come back to the issue of therapy and really encourage people that if you are even thinking that therapy could be useful, it probably is a sign that you should look into it. Not everybody has the capacity to do so because it's something that has to be paid for, and I really wish that we valued mental health a lot more in this country so that everybody would have access to it, because I think that it would really benefit us a lot to not just have these open conversations about mental health issues, but for everybody to have access to the care that they need. So I know that that is not accessible to a lot of people, but if it is for you, it is something to take advantage of. They don't make it easy. A lot of times just setting up an appointment is difficult. You have to jump through hoops, and it's okay to take your time with that. You know, the first time I ever made an appointment, I decided I was ready for therapy and that I was going to make an appointment, and then it took me weeks and weeks to even look up the phone number. And then once I got the phone number that I needed to call, it took another set of weeks before I built up the courage to make that call. Once I made the call, because I have health insurance, there were just set steps that needed to be taken, and everybody that I encountered along the way was really great, made it everything easy for me because they know they're dealing with people that are reaching out for help. I know that's not always the case. I've heard stories of people that have encountered people that have not taken care with the way they handle patients. And that is such a shame because that can really impact someone's ability to seek out care. And I'm really disappointed that people have those experiences, but it's worthwhile to keep pushing, to seek that help, and to not give up when you don't find the right therapist. Sometimes it takes a while to find the right therapist, to find the right treatment, and all that, but I think it's really important to seek help if you are in a position where you can afford that. So those are my updates, my thoughts on reading anxiety, and kind of how I've been approaching it. The main thing for me is to, whenever I have intrusive thoughts of thinking I'm not reading enough or I'm not reading the right things, is to remember that it's a hobby and to examine, hey, is this making me happy? Because if it's not, it's really easy to change that. Right? I stop reading. One of my goals this year is to DNF more. Books that are not making me happy, that I know are not for me, to stop reading them, to not force myself to read something that I am not into, that is not for me, and that is okay. So I'm here for anybody that needs a little bit of motivation, a little pep talk, anything like that. Feel free to leave your comments down below. If you've never dealt with anxiety around your reading, that's also really, really great. But I know that for a lot of us, it's something that comes up. It just does. So feel free to leave all your comments down below. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.